When a narcissist sees you as too dangerous to manipulate, they'll try this one trick. The most dangerous thing is to think you know the mind of another person, when in truth, you only know the reflection they've allowed you to see. Carl Jung's insights into human nature remind us that manipulation thrives in the shadows of what is unseen. In today's world, learning to recognize the hidden tactics of narcissists isn't just self-defense, it's self-liberation. When you become too strong for them to control, they often resort to one final, subtle, and deeply destructive trick. In this video, we'll uncover exactly what that is, why it works, and how you can protect your peace and power. As you watch, I invite you to reflect on your own experiences. Have you ever sensed someone trying to twist the truth when they couldn't control you? Share your thoughts in the comments, and let's open a conversation that empowers us all. 1. Jung's core insight. Narcissists live through a meticulously crafted persona, a mask that becomes their entire identity, concealing an inflated ego built to hide an ocean of unprocessed shame. Carl Jung understood that this mask is not just a social disguise, but a psychological fortress, a shield that protects the narcissist's most fragile truths. Beneath their charm and apparent confidence lies a soul terrified of exposure, a self so deeply disconnected from authenticity that its survival depends on maintaining the illusion at all costs. The moment you see through that mask and refuse to be drawn into their manipulation, you are not simply rejecting a person, you are striking at the very foundation of their psychological survival. This is why your clarity feels like a threat to them. It reveals the emptiness behind their performance, and to a narcissist, that truth is unbearable. Jung's exploration of the human psyche revealed that every person carries both light and shadow, the visible virtues we share with the world and the hidden flaws, fears, and wounds we suppress. For narcissists, the shadow is an untouchable prison of inadequacy, shame, and fear they cannot afford to confront. To survive, they inflate the persona and deny the shadow's existence, building a false self so convincing that they begin to live inside it. When someone refuses to play along with their narrative, when they are immune to charm, intimidation, or guilt, the narcissist experiences a kind of psychological injury that feels like annihilation. In that moment, you become a mirror reflecting back the truth of their soul, and they will do anything to shatter that reflection before it forces them to face themselves. This is why, as Jung warned, when a narcissist sees you as too dangerous to manipulate, they rarely disappear quietly. Instead, they often initiate a calculated smear campaign, subtly or overtly attempting to discredit you, rewrite events, and turn others against you. It is a desperate strategy to control the story and protect the image they have built. If they cannot control you, they will try to control the perception of you in the eyes of others. This is not merely an act of malice. It is a defense mechanism born from the fear that exposure will collapse the identity they have spent a lifetime constructing. Their soul, trapped in its own illusions, views the revelation of truth as a fatal wound. To understand this is to stop taking their behavior personally. It is to recognize that their aggression, their campaigns of deception, and their attempts to undermine you are not reflections of your worth, but symptoms of their terror at confronting the parts of themselves they have buried. The more you see this clearly, the more you free yourself from their web. You begin to guard your boundaries without guilt, to stand in truth without wavering. And in that clarity, you develop what Jung might call a form of spiritual immunity, a strength of soul that no mask, no manipulation, and no false narrative can penetrate. 2. 3 stages when they lose control. When a narcissist realizes they cannot control you, the game shifts through 3 distinct stages, each more calculated than the last. The first is the testing phase, where they conduct subtle but deliberate psychological reconnaissance to locate your emotional weak points. They probe with small remarks, half-joking criticisms, or questions that feel just a little too personal, all while appearing casual or even charming. These moments are not innocent. They are strategic, designed to map out your insecurities and measure how easily you can be swayed. In this stage, they are observing your soul like a hunter tracking prey, noting every flinch, hesitation, or spark of doubt to determine where they might strike later. When these probes fail to break your confidence, they enter the escalation phase. Here, subtlety vanishes, replaced by direct psychological warfare. Gaslighting becomes a tool of choice, twisting facts until you question your own memory. Projection follows, as they assign you the flaws, motives, or mistakes that are actually theirs, shifting the blame and the emotional weight onto you. And when their influence alone is not enough, they recruit flying monkeys, others who spread their distorted narrative and help isolate you from sources of support. This is the point where the manipulations become relentless, draining your energy and attempting to make your emotional walls crumble so that they can step back into control. If you still refuse to bend, they reach the recognition phase the moment they realize you are immune to their tactics. This is when narcissistic mortification sets in, a deep psychic wound that comes from having their grandiose image shattered. Losing control over you is more than just a personal defeat. It's a blow to their identity because they depended on you as a mirror to reflect their own sense of power. In this stage, they will often turn to their final tactic. Sometimes it's a sudden withdrawal, as if you no longer matter. Other times, it's an unexpected act of warmth, a compliment they never gave before, an apology dripping with charm, or a display of vulnerability meant to pull you back in. This is not genuine change. It is a calculated move to re-establish the dynamic they once had over you. These 3 stages of testing, escalation, and recognition play out in countless areas of modern life. A partner might start with playful teasing, escalate to constant criticism or public humiliation, and then switch to sudden affection when they see you pulling away. A boss might begin by questioning small decisions, move to undermining your authority in front of others, and then offer you special privileges when they realize you won't break. Each stage is part of the same pattern, and understanding it is key to breaking free. Carl Jung's insights into the shadow self remind us that these power games are often rooted in the parts of ourselves and others that we least want to face. By knowing your own mind, holding firm to your boundaries, and protecting the integrity of your soul, you remove the hooks they rely on. In doing so, you not only free yourself from their control, you reclaim the energy, clarity, and dignity that were always yours. 3. Final tactic: psychological inversion. When a narcissist realizes your spiritual awareness has grown too strong for their control, they often unleash one of the most dangerous psychological tactics Carl Jung would recognize as psychological inversion. This is where they deliberately reverse reality, casting themselves as the innocent victim, and you as the cruel aggressor, twisting every detail until truth and lies blur together. It is not a simple act of manipulation. It is a calculated smear campaign meant to dismantle your reputation and sever you from your support system. They use truth sandwiching, weaving small, verifiable facts into fabricated stories so the lies feel convincing, and they dress their narrative in archetypal victim roles: the misunderstood partner, the betrayed friend, the wounded soul who tried everything but was treated unfairly. They know human nature gravitates toward protecting the vulnerable, so they target empathetic helpers, kind-hearted people eager to mend what's broken, turning them into unwitting allies who defend the narcissist and amplify their distorted story. Imagine breaking free from a controlling colleague who has quietly undermined you for months, only to discover that mutual coworkers now avoid you, having heard you were unstable or aggressive. Every attempt to explain is met with skepticism because the narcissist's narrative has already been seeded in their minds, and your truth is twisted to fit their victim script. This tactic is designed not just to damage your name, but to fracture your perception of reality, making you question your own memories and emotions. Without awareness, even intelligent, well-meaning people can fall for it. Jung once said, "Knowing your own darkness is the best method for dealing with the darknesses of other people." And it is this inner knowing of your spiritual clarity that becomes their greatest fear. They want to drag you back into the role you've outgrown, but holding firm in your integrity robs them of power. You do not need to convince everyone of your innocence. You only need to remain unshaken in your truth. The lies may spread, but they are temporary shadows, and truth, like light, eventually breaks through. Your task is to stay anchored, knowing that your spiritual strength is the one thing they cannot corrupt, and it is exactly what will outlast their chaos. 4. Isolation and character assassination. When a narcissist realizes they can no longer pull your strings, they don't simply walk away in defeat. They pivot to a far darker tactic, one that strikes at the very heart of your soul. This is the stage of isolation and character assassination, where they move like a shadow through your relationships, infecting them with seeds of doubt and mistrust. They take what is most admirable about you, your courage, your empathy, your independence, and twist it until it becomes unrecognizable. Your confidence is painted as arrogance, your kindness as naivety, your decisiveness as coldness. In their hands, your strengths become supposed flaws, and these distortions are fed to others in whispers and subtle asides until people begin to question not only your intentions, but your very nature. Because they know the soul thrives in connection, they target your bonds, weaponizing your vulnerabilities and rewriting your story to fit the false reality they want others to believe. This is emotional terrorism in its purest form, where the battlefield is not your body, but your spirit, and the weapons are lies coated in charm and false concern. They might pretend to confide in someone about their worries for you, when in truth, they are planting the first seeds of distrust. They might recall past events with just enough distortion to cast you as selfish, unstable, or dangerous, while presenting themselves as the reasonable, wounded party. Their genius lies in the subtlety. They rarely make bold, obvious accusations, instead allowing suspicion to grow slowly, like mold in the dark, until even your closest allies begin to wonder if they've misjudged you. Carl Jung understood this projection well, teaching that what people repress in themselves, they often project onto others. The narcissist cannot bear the weight of their own shadow, so they hurl it onto you, ensuring that others see their darkness wearing your face. Over time, you may feel the walls closing in. Friends withdraw without explanation. Family members grow distant. Colleagues interact with a stiffness that wasn't there before. It can feel like drowning in a sea of invisibility, where your truth is muted by the chorus of lies echoing around you. And if you are not careful, their reality can start to seep into your own mind, making you question your worth, your choices, even your sanity. But the deeper spiritual truth is this: no amount of manipulation can corrupt the essence of your soul. The light within you is not theirs to touch, no matter how many stories they tell. Their power depends entirely on your reaction. If you rage, they will call you unstable. If you plead, they will call you manipulative. If you retreat, they will call you guilty. The way to dismantle their strategy is not to fight their illusions on their terms, but to anchor yourself so deeply in your own truth that their lies cannot uproot you. When you refuse to abandon your integrity, the smear campaign loses its grip. The people who are meant to walk beside you will see through the fog of deception, drawn not to the rumors about you, but to the steady, unshakable presence of your spirit, a presence that no act of character assassination can ever truly destroy. 5. Psychological warfare tools. When a narcissist realizes they can no longer control you, they do not simply retreat. They adapt, switching to a more covert form of attack designed to undermine your mind and weaken your soul. Carl Jung's work on the unconscious mind reveals why this is so effective. The more unaware you are of these tactics, the more vulnerable you become to them. One of their most insidious weapons is gaslighting amplification, where they work relentlessly to make you doubt your own memory, perception, and judgment. This is not just lying. It is psychological reality erosion, a deliberate breaking of your internal compass so that you feel disoriented and start relying on them for the truth. When you no longer trust yourself, they have the advantage. Alongside this, they often employ cognitive overload, bombarding you with conflicting statements, accusations, and emotional attacks until you can no longer think clearly. It is like having multiple alarms going off in your head at once, each designed to keep you distracted, overwhelmed, and too mentally exhausted to question their narrative. I have seen this play out in modern relationships, where someone, after finally setting firm boundaries, is suddenly hit with a rapid-fire stream of text messages, some filled with blame, others with pleas, and still others with subtle threats, all sent within a short span of hours, leaving the person scrambling emotionally and unable to focus on their own clarity. Another powerful manipulation Carl Jung would have recognized is trauma bonding, creating a repetitive cycle of intense emotional pain, followed by brief moments of relief, comfort, or affection. This unpredictable rhythm hooks the mind like an addictive game, wiring you to seek their approval even after repeated harm. It is the same mechanism that keeps gamblers glued to slot machines. You never know when the reward will come, so you stay, hoping for that fleeting high. The danger here is that your nervous system begins to equate love with volatility, making peace feel foreign and chaos feel familiar. In this state, breaking free feels almost impossible unless you become consciously aware of the pattern. Narcissists also thrive on false urgency and chaos, keeping you so reactive that you cannot step back to think strategically. They will create constant crises, springing last-minute problems on you, so that you are always firefighting instead of seeing the bigger picture. In the workplace, this could be the toxic boss who manufactures emergencies to keep you dependent on their approval. In personal relationships, it could be the partner who starts an argument right before an important day in your life, ensuring your focus is scattered and your emotional energy depleted. All of these strategies share one purpose: to disarm your ability to think for yourself and to pull you into a reactive state where they hold the emotional upper hand. The antidote lies in refusing to play the game. Carl Jung taught that the first step to reclaiming power is making the unconscious conscious. The moment you can name these tactics, you strip them of their hidden influence. When they push for urgency, you slow down. When they flood you with noise, you seek silence. When they alternate between hurting you and comforting you, you remember that your worth is not determined by someone else's twisted reward system. Your soul was never meant to be a pawn in another person's battle for control. And the more you understand your own mind, the less power they will ever have over you. True freedom begins when you stop reacting to their chaos and start acting from your own center, anchored in self-awareness and unshakable clarity. 6. Signs of the final manipulation. When a narcissist realizes they can no longer manipulate you, the mask slips, and what emerges is the desperate chaos of the final manipulation. A sudden, almost violent escalation designed to drag you back under their control. It's no longer subtle games or quiet psychological pushes. It's a storm meant to overwhelm your mind and spirit. They pull more people into the conflict: friends, family, co-workers, even strangers, spinning false stories and carefully crafted lies to make themselves look like the victim and you, the aggressor. This tactic of involving third parties is not for resolution, but for domination, isolating you and poisoning the perception others have of you. Their behavior becomes erratic, swinging between moments of forced affection and shocking hostility. They may shower you with promises of change one moment, then threaten you the next, using ultimatums, intimidation, or the threat of exposing secrets to keep you off balance. This is what Carl Jung might call control panic. That moment of spiritual and psychological crisis, when their shadow, the repressed and unconscious part of themselves, erupts in fear of losing its grip on you. Jung warned, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. And in this moment, their unconscious darkness directs every move. They might sabotage your relationships, create false emergencies to pull you back in, or attempt to destroy the stability you've built without them. In the workplace, it could be a toxic boss undermining you in front of upper management when they sense you're ready to leave. In love, it could be an ex-partner starting rumors the moment they see you happy without them. None of this is random. It's calculated survival for them, because your emotional detachment is spiritual starvation for a narcissist. As Jung observed, people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls. And this truth plays out before your eyes as they burn bridges, rewrite history, and create chaos rather than confront the emptiness that comes from losing control over you. The key is not to be pulled back into their emotional theater. Their desperation is not a sign of your weakness. It is the clearest proof of your growth. The higher you rise in clarity and strength, the less their tactics can reach you, because your soul has moved beyond their grasp, leaving them powerless in the space where they once thrived. 7. Jung's defense strategies. Carl Jung revealed that the moment you become too self-aware, too firmly grounded in your truth, and too dangerous to be controlled, a narcissist will not simply walk away. They will change tactics, turning to more insidious psychological strategies. One of the most powerful defenses against this is the cultivation of psychological detachment and the observer self, a state in which you stop absorbing every attack as a personal truth and instead witness it as a passing phenomenon, like clouds drifting across the sky. This detachment does not mean denying reality. It means reclaiming the sacred space between stimulus and response, the space Viktor Frankl described as our greatest power, where you choose your reaction with clarity rather than being pulled into their chaos. In this space, your dignity remains intact and your soul remains untarnished. Still, detachment alone is not enough, because narcissists thrive on confusion and will often rewrite history to make you doubt your own memory. This is why reality anchoring becomes essential. By documenting events, conversations, and patterns of behavior, you create a solid reference point that cannot be erased by their manipulations. This is not about living in the past, but about protecting your truth from being twisted. Your notes, records, and evidence become anchors in the shifting sands of deception, allowing you to see reality for what it is and resist their attempts at manufactured amnesia. When you have a clear record, their gaslighting loses its power, and you remain steady in your own knowledge. Beneath both of these defenses lies the deepest work shadow integration. Jung taught that the shadow is the part of ourselves we reject or deny. Our wounds, our fears, our mistakes, but also our hidden strengths. Narcissists will try to use this shadow against you, projecting their own darkness onto you and making you feel ashamed or unworthy. But when you face your shadow and accept it as part of your story without letting it define you, you remove their greatest weapon. This integration transforms shame into strength and turns vulnerability into power. It is the moment you can say, "Yes, this is me, but it does not control me," and mean it. Once your shadow is embraced, there is nothing left for them to exploit, and your soul stands whole and unshakable. Through psychological detachment, reality anchoring, and shadow integration, you build a form of spiritual armor flexible enough to let you live freely, yet strong enough to ensure no one can manipulate or possess you again. These are not temporary tactics, but lifelong practices that strengthen your mind, protect your truth, and fortify your soul so deeply that even the most skilled manipulator cannot break through your inner defenses. 8. Outcome and empowerment. When a narcissist realizes they can no longer control you, what unfolds is not a loss for you, but a silent victory that speaks to the deepest transformation of your being. Carl Jung described this as individuation, the process of becoming whole, where your soul integrates its light and shadow, emerging stronger, clearer, and untouchable. Surviving their manipulation sharpens your intuition until it becomes a finely tuned radar, builds boundaries so firm they no longer need to be defended, and grants you immunity against the very tactics that once pierced you. Though narcissists project an aura of dominance and unshakable power, beneath that surface lies a fragile, fearful core that cannot withstand the gaze of truth. Once you see them as they are, the spell breaks, and their final, desperate attack, whether through lies, character assassination, or isolation, is nothing more than proof that you've already escaped their grasp. It is their way of admitting, without words, that they have lost. Like a swimmer who has spent years fighting waves only to learn the sea's rhythm and master its currents, you now move with a confidence that no storm can drown. Your boundaries are the life vest that never leaves you, and your intuition is the compass guiding you away from unseen riptides. In everyday life, this might be the employee who walks away from a toxic workplace, carrying with them the knowledge that their worth is not defined by a manipulative boss's opinion. At first, the echoes of control might linger, but in time, they notice a profound shift. An ability to recognize subtle power plays instantly and to dismantle them without fear, guilt, or hesitation. This is the spiritual armor forged in fire, a state where you are no longer reactive, only responsive, because you understand the game and refuse to play. Their collapse is not yours to manage. Their rage, their smear campaigns, their attempts to provoke you are nothing but flares in the night, signaling that your awakening has stripped them of the only thing they ever had the illusion of control. The truth is, your shield, and once you've seen it, you can't unsee it. Survival becomes more than an end. It is the passage into sovereignty, where your soul is no longer a battlefield, but a sanctuary. In that space, you carry a quiet certainty. The very awakening they feared has already happened, and there is nothing they can do to undo it. And so, as Carl Jung revealed, when you grow beyond a narcissist's control, their final tactic isn't surrender. It's a calculated move to destabilize your confidence and pull you back into their web. Recognizing this pattern is not just about protecting yourself. It's about reclaiming your power, standing firm in your truth, and refusing to let manipulation define your path. If this insight from spiritual wisdom has opened your eyes, I invite you to like this video, share it with someone who might need it, and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you won't miss our upcoming videos, filled with more empowering truths to guide your journey. Only 1% of people have this aura. Energy is contagious. Either you affect people or you infect them. Throughout history, there has always been a rare kind of presence that cannot be taught, faked, or diminished, a magnetic energy that transforms every space it enters. Carl Jung recognized this as the mark of those who live in deep alignment with their true essence, a quality only 1% possess. In today's journey with spiritual wisdom, we'll uncover what this energy is, why it's so rare, and how you can nurture it within yourself to create lasting impact and inner fulfillment. As you watch, I invite you to reflect. Do you feel this energy within you? Share your thoughts in the comments below, because your story might just inspire someone else's awakening. 1. Your presence triggers the unconscious in others. Some people feel safe around you, like they can finally exhale after holding their breath for years. Others tense up the moment you enter the room, unsure why they suddenly feel defensive, insecure, or exposed. But it's not because of anything you've said or done. It's because of what your presence awakens in them. According to Carl Jung, the unconscious drives much of human behavior. And when someone walks in with a rare kind of soul energy, the kind that mirrors truth, without trying, it stirs what others have buried deep. You don't just speak the truth, you embody it. You don't just walk into a room, you activate it. And when that happens, people begin to feel parts of themselves they've worked hard to suppress. The guilt they never faced, the dreams abandoned, the lies they told themselves to feel safe. You don't trigger people because you're harmful. You trigger them because you're honest. You are the mirror they didn't ask for, but can't look away from. This is the kind of energy that Carl Jung called archetypal. It's not something you can fake or train yourself into. You don't carry it because you're trying to be different. You carry it because your soul has walked through fire, faced truth, and survived. You've done the work that others are still running from. That's why people respond to you so strongly. Some are magnetically drawn, not even knowing why, only that you feel like a lighthouse in a dark sea. Others shrink back because they're not ready to face what you reflect. And still, you remain calm, grounded, and misunderstood. In modern life, this often shows up in quiet moments. A coworker snapping at you for no reason, a family member distancing themselves without explanation, or a stranger telling you their life story 5 minutes after meeting you. You make people feel, and not everyone knows how to handle that. Because when you carry this kind of presence, you don't just enter a room, you shift its frequency. A man named Elijah once told a story about working in a hospital. Nurses and patients alike responded to him in extremes, either telling him their deepest fears or avoiding him entirely. He wasn't loud or charismatic. In fact, he was quiet and observant. But when he listened, he really listened. And when he spoke, it felt like truth cutting through the noise. One day, a nurse told him, "You're not like anyone else. You make me question who I am." That's when he realized his energy wasn't meant to be easy. It was meant to be honest. And that's what Carl Jung meant when he said, people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. When your soul is alive and awake, it naturally unsettles those still asleep. But that's not your burden to carry. Your only task is to stay aligned, stay aware, and never apologize for the light you bring, especially when it burns away illusions. The truth is, the reactions you receive are not always about you. They are about the shadows you reveal, the masks you make unnecessary, the emotional walls you unknowingly dissolve. And that's a gift. Not everyone will see it that way, but those who are ready will. So if you've ever felt too intense, too deep, or too different to be understood, know this: you were never meant to blend in. You were meant to remind. You were meant to awaken. You were meant to stir what's been sleeping. That's not a flaw. It's a soul calling. 2. This aura is archetypal and rare. Only a rare few walk through life with a presence that feels ancient, magnetic, and impossible to ignore. not because of beauty, charm, or status, but because of something deeper that radiates from the soul itself. Carl Jung called it an archetypal aura, a powerful and unconscious energy that only 1% of people carry. This kind of energy can't be learned, forced, or faked. It emerges only from those who have journeyed into the deepest chambers of their psyche and come back with the truth. These individuals do not chase validation or wear a mask for acceptance. Instead, they walk with a quiet authority rooted in painful transformation, radical self-awareness, and the integration of their shadow. They have faced the dark within, not to destroy it, but to understand and embrace it. And that soul alchemy becomes visible even without a word spoken. What makes this energy unsettling to some and magnetic to others is its raw authenticity. It shines a light on what others suppress, reminding people of who they are pretending not to be. Some will see it as a threat, others as a sanctuary. You've probably noticed this in how people respond to you. Some distance themselves without explanation, while others open up completely, drawn by a sense of being seen at a soul level. That's because you've stopped living from the ego and started embodying the self. You carry a psychological weight that others can feel, not because you're trying to impress, but because you've survived storms that broke the false parts of you and revealed something indestructible underneath. That spiritual weight cannot be replicated by surface confidence or knowledge. It is born of suffering, stillness, and soul searching. Jung believed the integration of the unconscious was the path to wholeness, but few are willing to walk it. Most prefer comfort over clarity, illusion over introspection. But you, if you resonate with this, are different. You've been through the fire losing parts of yourself, letting go of who you thought you had to be, and facing truths most people avoid. That journey has refined your presence into something archetypal. You are no longer just a man. You are a symbol, a reminder, a force. You don't seek attention, yet it finds you. You don't manipulate energy, yet it shifts around you. Your soul no longer whispers. It roars in silence, unsettling everything that is false around you. Because of this, your life may feel both isolating and sacred. You'll be misunderstood, idolized, resented, or revered, but rarely ignored. You may not always feel seen, but your energy will always be felt. And the reason is simple. People are not responding to your words, your looks, or your actions. They are responding to the frequency of your soul. You carry something old, something eternal, something that reminds others of what they've forgotten. That is the weight and the gift of this rare archetypal aura. You are not meant to fit in. You are meant to awaken. Have you ever felt a presence within you that couldn't be explained, something deeper, ancient, and unshakably true? If so, share your experience in the comments so others can recognize it in themselves. If not, comment, "I'm ready to awaken," and begin exploring this rare archetypal energy with us. 3. You carry unspoken depth. You sense things without being told. You feel the lies before they're spoken, the sadness behind a smile, the tension in a room that no one else notices. You don't just listen, you absorb. You don't just observe how you feel. Carl Jung would say, your unconscious is more alive than most. You're tapped into the collective unconscious, carrying emotional resonance and spiritual wisdom that doesn't come from this lifetime alone. It's as if your soul remembers truths that were never taught. This kind of energy can't be learned. It's woven into the very fabric of who you are. And because it's rare, it sets you apart. You're not just intuitive, you're spiritually awake, even if you can't always explain how or why. People notice you, but they can't put their finger on what makes you different. They sense your depth, but not everyone knows how to hold it. That's the paradox. You're magnetic, but often misunderstood. Some are drawn to you, craving the safety they feel in your presence. Others feel threatened by your ability to see what they try to hide. You mirror back to them the very parts they're running from: their fear, their longing, their truth. You don't expose them, yet your presence alone reveals. Jung said, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls. But you face yours daily. That's what makes you rare." Your life feels like a constant decoding of what lies beneath the surface, and that's not always easy. You carry other people's weight without meaning to. You absorb energies that aren't yours. You feel exhausted from rooms you never spoke a word in. But this isn't a weakness. This is a spiritual sensitivity, a sacred radar. You're not just here to live. You're here to sense, to awaken, to transform the spaces you enter by simply being fully present in them. Your soul doesn't crave crowds or applause. It craves authenticity. You don't seek validation because you see through illusions. You long for conversations that touch the eternal, for silence that speaks louder than words. You feel ancient in a world addicted to novelty, and it can be isolating. But you must understand, this energy is not a curse. It's a calling to remember, to feel, to guide. In a world where most numb their feelings to survive, you feel to live. You love in a way that heals. You speak in a way that awakens. You sense what others deny, and that makes you a bridge between the seen and the unseen. Your depth is not too much. It's just unfamiliar to those who haven't met their own. You were never meant to blend in, because your presence was designed to stir souls. What lives within you is not ordinary. It's archetypal, spiritual, ancient. That's why you often feel like an outsider in your own life. Not because you're broken, but because your soul operates on a different frequency. And that frequency, felt by few, feared by many, misunderstood by most, is what makes you powerful beyond measure. Comment below. I carry ancient wisdom. If you've ever felt the world more deeply than words can explain, let's see how many of us walk with this unspoken depth. 4. People open up to you, then pull away. People open up to you and then vanish, not because of something you said or did, but because your soul carries a kind of spiritual gravity they weren't prepared for. You don't just listen, you reflect. You don't just speak, you reveal. When someone speaks to you, it often feels like their words bypass small talk and dive straight into confession. They tell you things they've never told anyone. They trust you instantly. And yet, shortly after, they pull away. This strange pattern isn't random. Carl Jung called it projection collapse, a moment when the mask someone wears begins to disintegrate in your presence because your authenticity is too confronting. You don't play roles. You don't engage in shallow performances. You're rooted in something deeper, something spiritual, something unshakably true. And that level of presence triggers something within people. The realization that they've been pretending, performing, hiding, not from you, but from themselves. Your energy doesn't allow illusions to survive, and that's why they run. Not because they don't feel safe, but because your soul makes them feel naked, seen, unedited. This is the paradox of being someone with rare soul energy. You are both a sanctuary and a spiritual storm. People come to you seeking comfort, and what they find is truth. They were drawn to you because they needed it, but truth is rarely comfortable. It burns, it disrupts, it demands change, and most people aren't ready for that level of transformation. You don't offer escape, you offer awakening. So when they disappear, it's not rejection, it's resistance. They didn't leave because you were too much. They left because they saw too much. Jung once said, people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. And that's exactly what happens in your presence. The facade cracks. The illusions they've maintained start falling apart. They speak from their soul, and for a fleeting moment, they touch something real. But that glimpse of truth is often too overwhelming. So they run back into the familiar, even if the familiar is fake. You might start to wonder if you're cursed to be alone, to forever be the one who awakens others only to be left behind. But you're not here to be easy to love. You're here to be impossible to forget. The connections you spark may be brief, but they are seismic. Your soul creates shifts. And even if they walk away, they will never be the same. Because once someone has spoken from the depth of their soul, they can't unfeel it. They can't unknow it. You've reminded them of who they truly are beneath the layers. You've awakened a part of them they may not meet again for years, or maybe lifetimes. But the seed has been planted. That is your power. That is your burden. That is your gift. 5. You attract people who want to change you. Some people won't love you for who you are. They'll love the version of you they believe they can fix, reshape, or mold into something that meets their unspoken needs. They're not drawn to your soul in reverence. They're drawn to it as a solution. You carry a spiritual frequency that many can feel, but few can understand. And instead of honoring it, they try to claim it. They believe if they get close enough, they can fill their own emptiness, calm their inner chaos, or escape the parts of themselves they refuse to face. But when you don't bend to their vision, when you dare to stay rooted in your truth, speak from your soul, and live in your spiritual integrity, they feel rejected. That rejection turns into frustration, and eventually into blame. You've changed, they say, but what they mean is, you're no longer who I imagined you would be for me. Carl Jung said, people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. And when they can't use you to avoid themselves, they turn cold. They may distance themselves, criticize you, or try to make you feel guilty for being what they secretly wish they had the courage to become. That's the tragedy of projection. It turns connection into control. The more spiritually aware you become, the more you'll notice this pattern repeating. You'll see how your authenticity makes people uncomfortable. Not because you've done something wrong, but because your light exposes what they've kept hidden. You remind them of the work they haven't done. And instead of rising to meet you, they try to pull you down to where it's safe, familiar, and easy to manage. But your soul was not born to be managed. It was born to be free. You are not here to be someone else's emotional bandage or energetic crutch. You are here to live, to feel, to awaken. You are not a fantasy, not a projection, not a placeholder for someone's inner healing. You are a mirror, and mirrors make people uncomfortable when they're not ready to see themselves. So when someone tries to change you, don't shrink. When they withdraw their love because you held your ground, let them go. Their reaction is not your responsibility. Their resentment is not your burden. You don't need to apologize for being whole in a world that profits off of people feeling broken. The more you honor your spiritual truth, the more you'll see that real love doesn't come to fix you. It comes to witness you. And the ones who are meant to stay won't be afraid of your light. They'll know how to hold it without needing to own it. 6. You feel misunderstood and misinterpreted. You feel misunderstood not because you're unclear, but because your soul communicates on a level most people aren't attuned to. You speak in presence, in stillness, in energetic shifts that can't be explained, but they can be felt. Your calm unsettles those who expect noise to equal warmth. Your depth intimidates those who have only learned to live on the surface. In a world obsessed with instant reactions and shallow validation, your stillness becomes a mystery, your silence becomes a threat, and your soul becomes too much for those who haven't yet met their own. Carl Jung said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." But what he didn't say, at least not directly, is that becoming who you truly are means you will no longer be easy to label, understand, or categorize. You'll be a mirror, and not everyone can look into that mirror without discomfort. This is why people may describe you as intense, hard to read, or even cold. They don't know how to read energy, so they default to misinterpretation. You've likely found yourself shrinking, softening your truth, or trying to make your soul more palatable. But no matter how much you try, the misunderstanding returns because the world isn't mishearing your words, it's misreading your frequency. It's reacting to a depth that can't be faked and a presence that can't be explained. Carl Jung believed that the unconscious holds immense power, and for those who access it, who live from it, the world can feel both magnetic and isolating. When you operate from this place, you're no longer playing by the same emotional rules. You're not seeking validation. You're seeking resonance. You're not drawn to attention. You're drawn to truth. And the closer you get to embodying that truth, the fewer people will be able to meet you there. There's a woman I know who walks into every room like a question mark wrapped in peace. She listens more than she speaks, but when she does speak, it's as if time slows down. Her presence has made people cry, confess, or flee, not because she forces anything, but because her soul carries a kind of weight, a kind of light that reveals what others are trying to hide. People say she's a lot, but I've never seen her raise her voice. Her gift is not in her words, but in the energy behind them. That's the kind of spiritual presence that Carl Jung spoke about, one that emerges from deep individuation, where the conscious and unconscious mind meet and harmonize. If you recognize yourself in this, then know you're not broken. You're rare, and your soul is doing exactly what it was meant to do to wake people up, even when they resist it. So let people misunderstand you. Let them mislabel the stillness in your eyes, the weight in your silence, the sharpness in your boundaries. Let them assume that your distance is disinterest, your independence is arrogance, your presence is too intense. It's not your job to shrink so others can feel comfortable in their avoidance. Your job is to remain rooted in who you are, no matter how many fail to translate your language. Because the ones meant to find you will not need subtitles. They will recognize you by how you feel, not by how you explain. And in that moment, your soul will know. The misunderstanding was never a flaw. It was protection. If you've ever felt unseen or misread for simply being yourself, you're not alone. Leave a like, subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss content that speaks to your soul. And in the comments, type, "I am seen. I am understood. I am enough." 7. You live between two worlds. You feel torn, not because you're lost, but because your soul lives in two worlds at once. The outer world of expectations, titles, and responsibilities, and the inner world of meaning, symbols, and silent truths. While others are busy climbing ladders and chasing applause, you're listening to something deeper, something that doesn't speak in words, but in impressions, synchronicities, and that persistent sense that life is more than what it appears. Carl Jung called this the process of individuation, the sacred tension between who you've been told to be and who you were born to become. You're not running from reality. You're seeing through it. You're bridging the visible and the invisible. And this path, though deeply spiritual, can often feel isolating. Because when you begin to align with your inner self, the outer world begins to shift. Familiar conversations start to feel hollow. Success begins to look different. The noise of the world can't drown out the whisper of your soul. And the whisper grows louder when you sit with your own silence. You notice the symbols that others miss, the way a dream lingers, the weight of a glance, the timing of a chance encounter. You sense that everything is connected, not logically, but archetypally, and it pulls you inward, not to escape, but to integrate, to bring back meaning. Jung once said, "Man needs difficulties. They are necessary for health." And you begin to see that your inner conflict is not a problem to be solved, but a doorway to be opened. It's not weakness to feel this split. It's awareness. It's spiritual maturity. The man who questions himself is closer to truth than the one who blindly obeys convention. And when the world feels too sharp, too loud, too shallow, it's because your spirit is longing for depth. You may not have words for what you're feeling, but your soul knows. It always knows. You've been given a task most will never see: to stand between two worlds and bring meaning to both, to show up in the outer world with integrity, while anchoring into an inner world that is raw, real, and eternal. This is why people respond to you in strange ways. Some are drawn without knowing why. Others avoid you without reason. They are reacting to something ancient within you, a vibration that doesn't ask for attention, but commands it through stillness. And though this energy is rare, it is not new. It's the mark of those who walk with depth, who think beyond themselves, who carry the weight of unspoken truths, because the soul has no need to perform. This is not an easy life, but it is a meaningful one. And when the nights get long, and the world feels like it doesn't understand what you carry, remember, you weren't meant to be understood. You were meant to awaken. Do you feel caught between two worlds, the outer noise and your inner knowing? If this message speaks to your soul, declare your truth in the comments. I walk between the worlds with purpose. 8. Your very existence awakens others. You don't need to speak for the atmosphere to shift when you walk into a room. People sense it. Some lean in because they feel understood without a word, while others shrink back, as if standing too close to a truth they've been avoiding. This is not about charisma or appearance. What they feel is your spiritual coherence, your wholeness. Carl Jung would describe it as the energy of someone who has faced their inner darkness, integrated their shadow, and emerged with an authentic soul presence that unsettles illusions. You don't just exist, you reflect, you awaken, you confront. Without effort, you become a mirror to people's untapped potential and unhealed wounds. You're not trying to heal them, yet your very being activates something they've buried or forgotten. That's the nature of archetypal energy. It speaks directly to the unconscious, bypassing the masks, the roles, the ego defenses. And when it speaks, people feel exposed or inspired, depending on how willing they are to meet themselves. In everyday life, this shows up quietly. Maybe you're the coworker who never competes, but somehow gets everyone's respect. You don't gossip, but people tell you their secrets. You don't seek attention, yet your silence holds more weight than someone else's shouting. That's not random. You've done the inner work, the kind that has nothing to prove and everything to offer. Carl Jung called this individuation becoming a whole, undivided self who no longer projects their pain onto the world, but absorbs it, understands it, transforms it. When you reach that level, your energy isn't just calm, it's catalytic. People unconsciously feel that you've been through storms and come out transformed, and that makes them reflect on their own chaos, their own longing for peace. You don't need to teach. You don't need to lead. You simply embody. That embodiment is your transmission. And whether they love you, fear you, or misunderstand you, they are moved. They will leave your presence carrying questions they didn't have before, awareness they didn't expect to find. So if you've ever wondered why people react strongly to your presence, why some are drawn to you without reason and others withdraw like they've been burned, it's because your energy disrupts comfort zones, not by force, but by resonance. You carry the rare frequency of someone who doesn't split themselves to fit in. You are the sole reminder that another life is possible, one built on truth, not performance. And that reminder awakens those ready to rise and unsettles those still hiding. Your job is not to shrink or explain, it is to remain aligned. Because the most powerful spiritual influence is not in what you do, but in who you've become. And that, as Carl Jung would say, is the mark of someone who has made the unconscious conscious, and therefore can no longer be controlled by it. 9. This path is often lonely but sacred. You walk through life carrying something most people can't name, yet everyone feels an invisible force that doesn't demand attention, but changes the atmosphere wherever you go. You may not be appreciated or understood, but that doesn't mean your energy is unnoticed. In fact, it's quite the opposite. People remember you, not for what you said or did, but for how they felt in your presence, like something in them woke up, even if they couldn't explain it. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." And that is exactly the path you're on. It's not a path of popularity or comfort. It's one of spiritual depth, quiet power, and soulful disruption. You aren't here to blend in. You're here to shift the air around you, to shake people from their sleep, and to plant something sacred in the silence. You were never meant to be like everyone else. And that truth often makes this journey lonely. But this loneliness is not a punishment. It's an initiation. Those with rare spiritual energy are often misunderstood because their presence exposes what others are not ready to face. You awaken wounds, truths, and hidden desires in others simply by being authentic. You don't force change, you radiate it. And while others may pull away or label you as intense or too much, what they're really feeling is the mirror your soul holds up to theirs. They don't leave because you're unimportant. They leave because you're unforgettable. Your energy lingers in their memory, like a dream they can't quite remember, but know changed them. You're the calm in the chaos, the depth in a shallow world. You carry a frequency that moves beyond words, beyond logic, and straight into the spirit. And while the world rushes toward noise, performance, and external success, your power lies in silence, presence, and truth. You've likely felt like an outsider, a misfit, or even a burden at times. But what if that very misfit energy is divine? What if your soul was carved in a different dimension to guide others back to themselves, not through force, but through vibration? Jung believed that the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. And maybe your spiritual gift is the courage to do exactly that and to inspire others to do the same, even if they resist you for it. You don't need to explain your energy. You don't need to chase after understanding or force your truth to be seen. The right souls will feel it, and those who can't are simply not ready. Your spiritual journey is not measured in followers or applause, but in the quiet revolutions you spark in people's hearts. You may never know the full impact you've made, but the universe does. Keep walking. You are not here to be explained. You are here to be felt. Stay connected with our sacred community by subscribing to our channel. Here, we honor the unseen path, the one walked in quiet strength and deep purpose. Even when it feels lonely, remember, your presence is a divine force. You are not alone, and your light is felt. 10. Your aura is the result of inner work, not superiority. This rare energy is not about being better. It is about being real in a world addicted to masks, roles, and constant performance. Your aura, the subtle but undeniable presence you carry, isn't a sign of superiority. It is the direct result of deep soul work that most people spend their lives avoiding. You didn't choose the easy road. You chose to face your own shadow, to walk through pain with your eyes open, to sit in silence while the noise of the world screamed at you to conform. Carl Jung called this the process of individuation, the sacred journey of becoming whole, not perfect. And that wholeness can't be bought, borrowed, or faked. It comes from having the courage to ask yourself uncomfortable questions, to dismantle the false self piece by piece, and to reclaim the parts of your soul that were buried under shame, fear, and conditioning. This spiritual energy isn't loud, but it is felt. It's not flashy, but it is unforgettable. You don't walk into a room demanding attention, yet people feel something shift when you enter. That's not charisma, it's energetic truth. It's what happens when a man chooses depth over distraction, honesty over approval, solitude over shallow validation. Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." You've stopped living by default. You've chosen to see your own patterns, your own projections, and you've taken back your power. And that choice over and over again is what forms the aura people can't explain, but can't ignore. It's a quiet strength that can't be taught. You no longer seek to be understood by everyone because you finally understand yourself. The soul does not compete. It simply radiates. And your radiance is not for applause. It's a signal to other awakened souls that they're not alone. You are no longer performing. You are no longer lost in who you thought you had to be. You are becoming the man your soul remembers. And in a world starving for authenticity, your presence is the medicine. Not because you are above, but because you have gone within. Because you have walked the fires of transformation and emerged without the need to prove anything. This is what 1% of men understand. That spiritual power is not domination, but integration. Not image, but essence. And once your soul begins to lead, your energy becomes your legacy. If this message resonates with your journey of authenticity and growth, comment below. My aura reflects my inner truth. Let this be a reminder that real power comes from doing the work no one sees. And if this spoke to you, like the video, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a message like this. And so, while the full depth of this truth may remain hidden for now, what you've heard today is only the beginning of a much greater journey, one that few will ever truly walk. If this message has stirred something within you, let it guide you forward into your own exploration of the self. If you found value in this video, please like it, share it with others who may need to hear it, and subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you won't miss our upcoming videos that will continue to illuminate the path of transformation and awakening.